She found him just before dawn, slumped against the wooden post of the old ranch porch, rain-soaked, bleeding, and barely breathing, a man who looked like nothing more than another broken cowboy the world had forgotten, and at that moment Clara didn't know, or care, who he was, only that if she didn't act fast, he would die right there on the splintered boards. She dragged him inside her small farmhouse, hands shaking as she cleaned his wounds with the little medical knowledge she had gained from years of helping at the town clinic, her heart pounding as he groaned in pain, his broad chest rising unevenly under layers of dirt, blood, and rain, and when he finally opened his eyes, dark and sharp despite the fever burning through him, he whispered a faint thank you before losing consciousness again. For the next 3 weeks, Clara nursed him tirelessly, waking at odd hours to change bandages, spoon broth into his mouth, and cool his fever with damp cloths, all while struggling to keep her own life together in a town that barely noticed her existence, a town where the hospital was always on the brink of shutting down, understaffed and underfunded, where Clara volunteered without pay because helping people was the only thing that made her feel whole. The cowboy never complained, never asked for special treatment, and when he could finally speak, he introduced himself simply as Jack, saying he worked on ranches and drifted from place to place, his voice calm but guarded, and Clara believed him because nothing about him screamed wealth. His boots were worn, his hands rough, his clothes patched and faded, but what did stand out was his quiet strength and the way he watched everything, as if measuring the world around him. Slowly, as his body healed, something else grew between them, small moments like shared smiles over burnt toast, late-night conversations about dreams they'd buried long ago, and laughter that surprised them both, and Clara found herself opening up about her fear that the hospital would close, leaving the town without medical care, about how her mother had died because help came too late, and how she refused to let that happen to anyone else if she could help it. Jack listened more than he spoke, his eyes softening whenever she talked about the hospital, and sometimes he asked questions that felt oddly specific, about budgets, donors, town council meetings, but Clara brushed it off, thinking he was just curious. When Jack was strong enough to stand, he insisted on helping around the farm, chopping wood, fixing fences, and one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, he told Clara he would be leaving soon, and the words hit her harder than she expected, a tight ache blooming in her chest as she realized how deeply she'd come to care for a man she barely knew. The next day, he left quietly before dawn, leaving behind a folded note that simply said, "You saved more than my life," and for weeks after, Clara tried to move on, pouring herself into the hospital just as rumors spread that it would finally shut down for good, the final council vote scheduled for the end of the month. Then, on the day of the meeting, everything changed when sleek black cars rolled into town, men in tailored suits stepping out, followed by Jack, no longer in worn denim but in a sharp suit that didn't erase his cowboy presence, only refined it, and the room fell silent as the mayor announced that the hospital had been saved by an anonymous donor who had just acquired the land, paid off all debts, and committed millions to modernizing the facility. Clara stood frozen as Jack's eyes met hers across the room, and in that moment, the truth crashed down on her. He wasn't just a cowboy, he was the billionaire investor who secretly owned half the county, the man whose name appeared on the hospital deed, the man who had watched her fight for others without ever knowing who he was. Later, outside the hospital, Jack finally told her the truth, admitting he had come to town undercover after losing faith in people who only wanted his money, and that it was Clara's kindness, her selflessness, and the way she treated him like a human being, not a wallet, that reminded him why the hospital mattered in the first place. Clara struggled with anger and disbelief, feeling betrayed yet unable to deny the good he had done, and when she asked why he hadn't told her sooner, Jack answered honestly, saying he was afraid that if she knew, she'd stop being herself, the woman who saved a dying stranger without expecting anything in return. In the end, Clara realized that what mattered wasn't who Jack was, but what he chose to do, and as the hospital doors reopened, brighter and stronger than ever, she stood beside him, not as a nurse and a patient, not as a poor woman and a billionaire, but as two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness can change lives and that sometimes the greatest miracles come disguised as ordinary moments, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this, stories of hope, love, and unbelievable twists, are waiting for you here every single time.